Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Marilyn Townsend, and I would like to introduce you to Matt Van Eperen, running for Alder in District 3. Welcome, Matt. As we begin, I'd like you to give an opening statement about the educational, vocational, and civic experience you have, which qualifies you for this office, and why you are running for Alder.
First of all, so thank you, Marilyn. As you said, my name is Matt Van Eperen. I'm running for District 3 Alder at the far east side of Madison. Thank you for putting this on. It's a great opportunity for the candidates to kind of get out there, give a little bit of info about them and their vision, as well as for voters to hear about us. So a little bit about me. So going far back, I was born and raised in a small town up in Northeast Wisconsin. Went to school at Marquette University in Milwaukee, graduated there with a degree in political science and then minors in international affairs and German studies, and then stayed at Marquette to attend law school. And I graduated there from law school in 2020. After that, my wife and I, we got married and moved here to Madison. For my career, I work at UW-Madison in research administration. And then my wife is also a teacher in Dane County. We have a son who joined us in February, so he's 11 months old. Actually, today is his 11-month-old birthday. So a little bit about why I'm running. With a son, as I'm getting into the community, I really want to make sure that, looking ahead towards the future, that Madison is a place for everyone, including my son, as we grow our family, that there's equity, economic abilities for people, that there's jobs, that there's affordable housing. Madison is booming, it's growing, and I want to make sure that the council recognizes that, but also takes steps to ensure that it can continue to grow and benefit people. When I was in school, I had the opportunity to intern with a few businesses and a few people. So one of my internships was actually with Congresswoman Gwen Moore in Milwaukee. So that was a really nice experience. It was just at the start of the Trump administration. So it was a very busy time, very enlightening, enjoyed it immensely. So I got to kind of see that end of it. I had also interned a summer in DC for a Wisconsin-based manufacturer company. And while I was there, I was able to sit in on some Senate hearings and whatnot. So that was also nice to see and to understand how that works. And now to get into my local community, I want to take some of that experience and try to help the people here at the local level.
What actions or programs would you support to enhance public safety in Madison? And in particular, what is your position on the use of body cameras by Madison police officers?
I think there's a lot of things that we can do in terms of establishing relationships between the community and law enforcement. Just building trust is a huge part of public safety, where you can have officers and the community members really trust and understand each other. And that way there's no fear, there's no misunderstanding between them. We need to ensure that, we can look at, what the root cause of crimes are and kind of deal with those. We need to be able to retain officers engaged in good policing. And look at ways to maybe make things more community-based policing, mental health officers, that sort of thing. In terms of body cameras, I know there was some discussions, and I didn't involve myself too much in that, so I don't have a great understanding of both sides. But from a general point of view, I don't necessarily think there's a bad thing about body cameras. It gives a little bit of insight into the actions. Of course, then you need to make sure they're always turned on. They're not used in bad ways, that sort of thing. but I would really like to kind of learn more about that and hear from community folks.
Thank you. What do you see as the most important environmental issues the city needs to address? What will be your priorities for council action on these issues?
So one thing I want to make sure, and this is another thing where I'd rely on other city employees and experts, is, if we have clean drinking water, if there are, PFAS in the water, if, there's lead pipes, that sort of thing, because those don't just have environmental issues, but those create health issues for the community folks. So I want to make sure the water is safe to drink, in our lakes, that it's safe to, enjoy. I also want to make sure that the environment is kind of harnessed in a way that benefits the community. So solar power, wind power, how can we incentivize, private property owners to include those clean energy programs into their own, and kind of get off these fossil fuel energies and stuff like that.
Thank you. What is your position on increasing the pay for alders?
I had heard of this discussion, and I understand where they're coming from, because it's a big job, and there's a lot that goes into it, and for the amount of pay, there might be a little bit of disparity between that. But at the same time, if we're raising alder pay, that money is going to have to come from somewhere. And so, what are you going to cut? And so I'd rather ensure that other programs that benefit the greater community have full funding before we give alder people more money.
What, if anything, do you think the city should do to support economic development?
So there's a few things. So we need to make sure that if we have workers, that we can also kind of match them with employers. There's a lot of people that are looking for jobs. There's also a lot of jobs that are open. So how can we match those employee skills with the employers who need employees? Coming out of college, how can we allow people to and incentivize people to go into trade school. University, college is not for everyone. Not everyone needs a liberal arts degree. So how can we kind of do those trade schools to ensure that, as the city keeps growing, we have the workforce to ensure that we can continue building, we can continue developing. In terms of other things, there's innovation, collaboration between communities and businesses. That competitiveness drives innovation. If there's incentives that the city can provide for small businesses to grow, that then allows, a greater economic impact as they're bringing on more employees. So, that's one thing I want to do, examine opportunities for funding, incentive for small businesses, workforce development, and kind of matching workers with jobs.
How do you see racial disparities impacting constituents in your district? And are there any actions the city should take to address them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think Madison has done a good job on, making sure that, the city as a whole and the community, I think the community as a whole is pretty open, pretty understanding of the disparities that, people of color face. As a city, how can we ensure that they have the same opportunities? So if you have, a Black business owner, how can we make sure that, they don't go to a bank 5 times and get denied for something, for a loan that somebody else could have received? How do we kind of make up for that? Can we provide funding for that business loan? That sort of thing. I think a lot of the times the issue kind of falls on deaf ears. What's beneficial, I think, for the whole community is for people experiencing issues or injustice or that sort of thing to kind of speak out and kind of give their view of things, give their experience, and it's the city's job and the council's job to kind of hear those, and then, if there's corrective actions that need to be taken, to take those.
What are the most critical issues that you see facing the people in your district, and what would you propose to address them?
So I think in the short term, a lot of people's minds are on the economy. I know there's every night it's egg prices. And so, we can't solve, the Common Council can't solve all the economic problems in the world. But there are steps that we can at least take to kind of look into how we can solve, economic issues that exist here in our local community. So, we have UW-Madison, we have a world-class research university here in our city. How can we use those experts in a way that allows us to kind of collaborate, innovate, examine the ways that, the economy can be developed and more equitable for everyone involved. I think public safety, we talked a little bit about earlier, that's also a big issue in a lot of people's minds. Madison is a very safe place to live, generally ranked near the top of the best places to live. And so there's not a lot of crime and not a lot of violent crime, but I think there are opportunities to kind of decrease the crime, get at the root cause of the crime, and keep our safe streets and communities safe. Looking longer term, although it is kind of a shorter term issue, is housing, affordable housing, housing inventory, making sure that people unhoused have shelter. As I mentioned earlier, Madison is booming. So how can we not price ourselves out, or, how can we make sure we have enough housing inventory to keep people coming in and staying here? There's a lot of things we can do with that. There can be rezoning. I know that was one, I think that passed last night. There was a rezoning ordinance that passed. There are building codes that can be re-examined. Property tax cuts, what effect would that have on the housing inventory, housing market, that sort of thing. There's not a lot of cheap, affordable housing for families right now, and I want to make sure that the city provides that housing so that, young people can stay here, get a family if they want to, grow a family, but that we ensure that there's people here that can stay here if they want to and continue to grow.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you in advance. The other candidate in the race, Derek, I have not gotten the opportunity to meet him. I'm sure we're both really, really excited for the opportunity to learn more about me, my vision for the city. If you have any questions or whatnot, I do have a website. It's votemve.com. So vote and then my initials, mve.com. I really want to harness this collaborative effort and this innovative sort of idea that Wisconsin has and that Madison has as we move forward. I've worked with all types of people of all different political backgrounds. I've worked with people who are Democratic Socialists. I've worked with people who are Trump supporters. And I think the key to getting something done is understanding where they're coming from and what their priorities are, and kind of making a collaborative relationship and a good working relationship between them. I know this last term of the council was not the most smooth. I had heard of accusations of hostile work environment, racism, and I want to make sure that when the new council all gets elected, there's going to be a lot of new faces that we can all come together, not just as a common council, but as a community, as all of Madison, and kind of continue to move Madison forward.
Thank you, Matt. I want to thank Matt Van Eperen for speaking with us, and for the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone that primary election day is Tuesday, February 21st, and the general election is Tuesday, April 4th. As with every election, please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.